There are moments in life when someone enters your world not to support you, but to use you to feed their ego, extract validation, or elevate themselves through your energy, kindness, or potential. They underestimate you, thinking your humility is weakness and your silence is ignorance. But what they fail to realize is this: when God marks a life, interference comes with consequences. Chosen ones are not protected because they are loud, aggressive, or vengeful, but because they are aligned. When someone attempts to manipulate, dominate, or exploit a divinely guided life, reality itself begins to correct them. The humbling that follows isn't revenge. It's divine order restoring balance. In this message, you'll understand why those who tried to use your life for ego were brought low, and why your stillness was never defeat. 1. They misjudged your silence as powerlessness. One of the biggest mistakes ego-driven people make is confusing restraint with weakness. You didn't react, you didn't compete, you didn't expose them, and because of that, they assumed control. But silence, especially in chosen ones, is not passivity, it's discernment. You were observing, learning, and allowing truth to reveal itself naturally. Ego wants reaction. It feeds on emotional responses because reaction gives it relevance. When you denied them that fuel, their insecurity intensified. They pushed harder, crossed boundaries, and revealed their intentions more clearly. What they didn't know was that your silence was protection. By not engaging, you allowed their own behavior to become the evidence. Eventually, life humbled them because ego always overplays its hand. They tripped over the very arrogance they thought made them superior. Meanwhile, you lost nothing because you never needed to prove yourself. God often protects chosen ones by making their enemies expose themselves without interference. Silence wasn't your weakness. It was the trap ego walked into on its own. 2. They tried to harvest your energy without respect. Some people don't want partnership, they want extraction. They were drawn to your light, your intelligence, your peace, your vision. But instead of honoring it, they tried to use it. They benefited from your presence while subtly diminishing you, believing they were entitled to what you carried. But energy taken without respect creates imbalance, and imbalance always corrects itself. You may have felt drained, confused, or undervalued during that season, not because you were weak, but because someone was feeding off what they didn't cultivate themselves. Chosen ones are not meant to be consumed, they are meant to inspire. The moment you withdrew emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, the flow stopped. And when it stopped, they were left to face themselves without your energy propping them up. That's when things began to fall apart for them. Confidence faded, clarity vanished, and their inner emptiness became unavoidable. God doesn't allow stolen oil to last. What isn't honored cannot be sustained. You were restored the moment you stepped back. They were humbled the moment the supply ended. 3. Their ego challenged what God was protecting. Ego is dangerous because it believes it can override divine order. This person didn't just disrespect you, they challenged what God had placed his hand on. They thought they were smarter, more strategic, or more deserving. But ego blinds people to spiritual hierarchy. Chosen ones often trigger others without trying. Your presence alone reflects truth, and ego hates mirrors. Instead of humbling themselves, they attempted to dominate, compete with, or control you. That's where the line was crossed. When ego confronts divine alignment, ego always loses. Not immediately, but inevitably. Things begin to collapse in subtle ways. Relationships strain, opportunities vanish, confusion sets in. Meanwhile, you may feel guided to detach, protected from chaos you didn't even cause. God doesn't rush judgment, but he is precise. The humbling they experienced wasn't punishment, it was correction. You were never meant to fight them. You were meant to outgrow them, and that's exactly what happened. 4. You refused to shrink, even when pressured. At some point, they tried to make you smaller subtly or directly, maybe through disrespect, manipulation, comparison, or emotional control. Ego feels threatened by those who won't dim themselves to keep others comfortable. But you didn't shrink, you stayed grounded. You held your standards. You kept your integrity. Even when it cost you access, approval, or comfort, you chose alignment over appeasement. That decision is powerful. Chosen ones are tested at this stage. Will you abandon yourself to maintain peace, or will you trust God enough to stand alone? You chose correctly, and when you did, the roles reversed. The one who tried to dominate you began to feel exposed, unstable, and insecure. Their humbling came from realizing they couldn't control you. Control is ego's currency. Once it's gone, ego collapses. Your refusal to shrink wasn't rebellion, it was obedience to who you were called to be. 5. God used the situation to elevate you, not them. The final reason they were humbled is simple. The situation wasn't about them, it was about you. What they intended for ego, God used for elevation. What they tried to exploit became the very lesson that strengthened your discernment, boundaries, and self-trust. You walked away wiser, clearer, and more aligned. They walked away confronted by their own limitations. That's divine reversal. God often allows chosen ones to be misunderstood, used, or underestimated, not to break them, but to reveal who they truly are. Now you see clearly, you move differently. You no longer give access where there is no honor. And because of that, your life begins to expand. Peace returns, direction sharpens, and blessings flow without resistance. They were humbled because they tried to play with something sacred. You were elevated because you trusted God more than your ego. That's the difference. Conclusion: if someone tried to use your life for their ego and ended up humbled, don't celebrate it, understand it. This wasn't about revenge. It was about alignment. You were protected because you stayed true. Remember, when God chooses a life, interference comes with consequences. Stay grounded, stay humble, stay aligned. What's meant for you will never require you to fight for it.